The MC was given 100 chances to protect his daughter from the zombies, but he failed every time. Now he's down to his final chance. Rain hammered down like bullets from heaven, transforming the forest into a drowning nightmare. Through the suffocating twilight, a man knelt in the mud beside a broken body. The air reeked of damp earth and death. The girl named Dami lay motionless, her chest painted with an ugly crimson bloom. The man's scarred hand trembled above her pale face as his voice cracked against the storm's fury. "I'm sorry, my daughter. I killed you. But here's the thing. This wasn't the first time he'd watched her die. Not the second. Not even the 10th. This was the 99th time he'd knelt beside her corpse. 99 loops of failure. 99 deaths that all traced back to him. He rose slowly. Now I have only one chance left." The words came out like a sacred oath to the howling wind. "Trust me, Dami. This time I absolutely won't fail. 100 chances." This was the last one. The apocalypse had come without warning. One moment, he'd been living an ordinary life. The next, everything collapsed. He remembered staring at his screen, watching news reports of chaos flooding in from every corner of the world, when Dami had walked into his room asking what he was doing. Looking at his daughter's innocent face, one thought had consumed him. They had to survive, no matter what. Then came the images he could never forget. The burning landscapes, the bruised orange sky, himself carrying Dami's lifeless body in his arms, thinking that this hellish world was no place for an old man and a young girl to survive. And just like that, they died. But death wasn't the end. A brilliant light had enveloped him, pulling him back from oblivion's edge. An angel appeared before him, offering something impossible. Another chance. He'd jolted awake in his bedroom, heart hammering against his ribs. Disoriented and gasping, he'd looked around the familiar room that suddenly felt alien. Something glowed faintly on his forehead, a luminous blue number, 99. Without understanding, only instinct, he'd burst from his room and ran to Dami's door, shouting her name. When she opened it, confused and sleepy, he'd grabbed her shoulders desperately. "You're okay? You're alive, right?" Before she could answer, he'd dragged her outside. She tried asking questions, but there was no time to explain. Not when the first zombie lunged at them from the shadows. Then he woke up again, same bed, same room. The number on his forehead now read 98. That's when the terrible truth crystallized in his mind. This number represented his remaining lives. Simply put, it was the number of chances he had left to save Dami. What followed were 99 attempts that blurred together into a nightmare of pain and sacrifice. He did everything humanly possible to save her. He fought with crude weapons, with his bare hands, with a ferocity that consumed his sanity. He learned, he adapted, he became stronger, faster, more ruthless than he'd ever imagined possible. He faced endless hordes of the undead. He battled monstrous abominations that defied nature. He scoured devastated cities for resources, always with Dami's survival as his singular focus. But she kept dying, torn apart by zombies, starved when supplies ran out, shot by desperate survivors, crushed under collapsing buildings. Each death carved a fresh wound into his soul, pushing him further from his humanity. His body became a map of suffering, scars layered upon scars, wounds that healed only to be reopened. He'd been ripped apart, slashed, devoured, and still he continued, all for her sake. Yet eventually, a devastating realization took root. Even with 100 or 1,000 chances, a weak father like him could only lead his daughter to death. He'd stared down at Dami's corpse, the number 13 hovering above him, marking how many times she'd died in that particular scenario. After cradling her one last time, he'd turned the gun on himself. He woke up crying. Looking at his sleeping daughter, he began packing his belongings with shaking hands. When she woke and asked what he was doing, he couldn't speak. He just pulled her into his arms and whispered a promise that he would protect her even if it took 1,000,000,000 years. It took 99 attempts to find the perfect shelter. A place where the unified military protected survivors, where hospitals still functioned, where humanity hadn't been completely lost. Citizens helped each other, order prevailed, people walked freely, laughed, lived actual lives. Children played in sunlight that felt almost normal. It was truly the perfect home. He'd lived an entire lifetime there, 40 years. Now he stood before Dami's coffin, an old man whose face was carved with time and regret. "I made you wait so long," he whispered to the wooden box. "But I had to be careful. This was my final chance." He'd carried the weight of 99 failures to reach this moment, convinced he'd finally found their destination, a place where they could live peacefully. Then he'd pulled the trigger one last time and returned to the beginning. The 100th life began with a harsh truth burning in his mind. In that previous existence where he'd lived 40 years, Dami had actually died just before they reached the shelter, because of his mistake. Even in his most successful attempt, he'd failed at the very last moment. But not this time. This time, he knew exactly what to do. Every step was planned, every moment rehearsed. "Dami, this time I absolutely won't make any mistakes." He opened the apartment door with absolute confidence, ready to execute the perfect plan. Then he froze. Huh? The hallway wasn't empty. It wasn't clear like it had been in every single one of his 100 rehearsals. Instead, a horrifying tide of undead burst forth. A writhing, blood-soaked mass that should not have been there. A variable. In 99 attempts, there was one variable he'd never considered. His mind, so accustomed to the predictable chaos, reeled in shock. The path to the shelter, those initial moments of survival, they'd been etched into his very being. There had never been zombies at the door. He stood paralyzed for a fraction of a second, but that was all it took. "Dad!" Dami's terrified scream snapped him back. He spun around as the horde charged. Together they slammed the door shut, but the zombies were already upon them, clawing and biting through the barrier. "Dad, what are you doing?" Dami cried from inside. "Dad, open this door now." Outside, the zombies swarmed him. Teeth sank into his flesh. He held the door shut with everything he had, blocking them with his own body. The familiar agony of being torn apart washed over him. Pain he'd felt 99 times before. The sorrow of having your intestines cut. The agony of losing your guts. He'd already experienced this death 99 times. This pain, he was used to it now. As the blue light began to consume him, memories flooded in. Dami as a beautiful baby in his arms. As a bright-eyed little girl, laughing without a care in the world. "So don't cry, my child." His voice echoed through the chaos. The blue light intensified, threatening to erase him completely. Was this how it ended? Was he going to die forever now? Then something inside him roared in defiance. No. His form exploded with power, no longer fully human but something else entirely. A being of raw, shimmering blue energy. A phantom. A living weapon. Whether 100 times or 1,000 times, he didn't mind dying. But if his daughter was still alive, he couldn't give up. He tore through the zombie horde like they were paper. Nothing but obstacles. Nothing but husks to be destroyed. He moved with impossible speed, devastating power flowing through every strike. Landing in the carnage, his new body gleaming with otherworldly light, he faced a massive blue-tinged zombie, a twisted monstrosity that dwarfed the others. The creature gurgled in confusion at his sudden transformation. He lunged forward, a phantom strike shattering it with a single devastating blow. It exploded in a shower of icy blue energy and crimson gore. But another abomination lumbered forward, even larger, radiating pure malevolence. Its roar could curdle blood. He stood his ground, eyes burning with unholy blue light, his face set in grim eternal resolve. He was ready. After the last zombie fell, he opened the door to find Dami huddled inside, eyes wide with terror as she peered through the crack. Another chance given to him, another moment to protect her. The blue energy faded as he approached his daughter. His voice, though changed, still carried all the love a father could hold. "Don't worry, Dami. Even if I'm not human anymore, I will protect you till the end." The night sky hung heavy over Seoul. What used to be a city of lights was now just broken glass and smoke. 7 days since the outbreak began, and the Mapo district had gone silent. In the ruins, an A-Mart still stood. Its torn sail banner moved in the cold wind, one of the few signs that people were still alive inside. A soldier in camouflage stood guard near the service entrance. His face was tense when he noticed movement, his grip on the rifle tightened. A man in a green jacket appeared, worn backpack on his shoulders, with a little girl clinging to his back. They looked like they'd been walking for days. The soldier frowned. "Zombies are everywhere out there. How did you make it here alive?" The man didn't answer, just stood there unnaturally calm. The soldier's tone turned hostile. "What are you, some kind of celebrity? Wearing sunglasses in this mess?" Before things could escalate, footsteps approached. A woman in a black sleeveless shirt with ROK printed on it emerged. Her name was Chahieri, former military captain and the leader here. Her expression was sharp and commanding. She didn't waste time. "Leave," she said flatly. "There's no room for anyone else." The MC stayed silent. Dami clung tightly to his arm, her breathing heavy. When Hieri repeated herself, he finally spoke. They had been wandering for a week. His daughter's asthma was worsening, and she could no longer keep walking. He begged them to help. If not both of them, then at least his daughter. The soldier burst out angrily, calling the man insane. But when he looked at his captain, he froze. Tears rolled down Hieri's face. She turned away quickly, composing herself. "Let them in." Her voice was firmer now. "We need more guards anyway." The man nodded and casually mentioned she should wipe her nose first. The soldier looked shocked, but the man remained calm. As they entered, he allowed himself a faint smile. Hieri hadn't changed, still the same soldier who protected survivors when everything collapsed. Dami tugged his sleeve, her face pale. "Dad?" she whispered shakily. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. He told her quietly he'd explain later, but before he could say more, the soldier called for them to get inside. Dami winced, clutching her head. The MC's expression tightened. Her condition was worsening faster than before. If she didn't rest soon, it could become dangerous. His mind flashed to a memory from a week ago. Dami crying while zombies surrounded him. Their claws tore into him, but he didn't die. His body changed, healed, adapted. Sometimes he wondered if he was still human. Inside the mart, the MC looked around. There were barricades, boxes of supplies, and exhausted faces. It seemed like a good place, safe enough for now. Then he noticed something odd. A nearby building had completely collapsed. That wasn't supposed to happen, not in this timeline. He asked a nearby soldier what caused it. The man looked at him suspiciously. "What do you mean? It happened 3 days ago. You talk like you're from the future." He went on to explain. 3 days earlier, a massive horde of zombies had attacked. Their captain, Chahieri, had lured the horde into that very building. Then she detonated the explosives they'd planted ahead of time, crushing the entire group under tons of debris. Back in the present, the soldiers stood guard, telling the MC that maybe a few creatures were still trapped inside the rubble, but they'd be long dead by now. The MC didn't answer. He just stared at the ruins, uneasy. The soldier laughed at his silence. "You're not thinking they could crawl out of there, are you?" he said, kicking a loose rock. That's when the ground started to move. A deep, low sound came from within the rubble. Cracks spread across the debris, and from the shadows, something enormous began to rise. It was a grotesque figure, its body torn and swollen, its eyes glowing a dark red. The soldier didn't even have time to react before the creature's massive arm struck him, crushing him instantly. Chaos broke out. Hieri appeared, barking orders as the soldiers opened fire. Bullets hit the monster, but it didn't slow down. It roared and tore through the group, killing soldiers in seconds. One soldier remained on the ground, frozen in terror. As the creature bore down on him, Hieri moved. She grabbed his collar and physically hauled him to his feet, her voice cutting through his panic. "Get it together! You wanna die?" The soldier, shaking and whimpering, managed to stammer out. Yes. Hieri's mind raced. "Focus, Chahieri. This isn't like 3 days ago. This isn't an ordinary zombie." A bead of sweat traced down her face as she calculated their options. She spun around, shouting to everyone behind her. "Get inside the mart, now." They ran. The MC was just behind her, trying to say something, but Hieri cut him off. "Just run." The MC glanced at Dami, then stopped and turned back, positioning himself to face the creature. Hieri's tactical mind worked furiously as she ran across the wet, debris-covered ground. They could lure it into the barricades outside the mart, use the terrain, trap it somehow. Then her eyes caught movement through a ground floor window. Civilians. Still on the first floor, a man holding a baby, a crying child, an older woman who couldn't move fast enough. All of them trapped, terrified, exactly where they shouldn't be. Why are there still people on the first floor? Hieri's voice cracked with urgency. They should have evacuated already. Damn it! She turned sharply to a soldier beside her, movements precise despite the chaos. "I'll distract it somehow. You three, get inside." Then she spotted Dami near the entrance, standing alone. "Where's your father?" Dami's trembling hand pointed toward the street. Hieri turned. What she saw defied every law of nature she knew. The MC stood before the massive zombie. Then he moved, impossibly fast. His hand became a blur. One strike, clean and devastating. The creature's head separated from its body and hit the ground with a wet thud. The massive corpse swayed for a moment, then collapsed in a cloud of dust and debris. Silence. Nobody moved. Nobody even breathed. The MC hunched over, exhausted but alive. "Phew!" He let out a breath. His green jacket splattered with dark blood. The ground around him was covered in debris and gore. Hieri stared, wide-eyed. Shock was written across every feature. The soldier beside her mirrored her expression, mouth open, eyes unable to process what they'd just witnessed. "You." Hieri's voice came out sharp. "Who exactly are you?" The MC met her gaze, his expression unreadable but somehow confident. "Ryu Minseok." The MC just smiled calmly. He explained that he was a zombie expert. Since the outbreak began, he'd been analyzing their traits and weaknesses to survive. He was glad he could be helpful today. Hieri smiled back, but it didn't reach her eyes. In one swift motion, she moved forward and pressed a small blade to Ryu Minseok's neck. Her face was inches from his, eyes burning with something between anger and fear. How can a human defeat that thing with bare hands? The blade pressed harder against his skin. She leaned closer, studying his face in the dim light. "And your eyes? You have the same eyes as them. Those red eyes." The question hung in the air, sharp and deadly. "Are you even human?" MC calmly explained that the gunshots had already weakened the creature, and he had simply finished the job. He described it as an eater, a type of zombie formed from the fusion of two corpses. These monsters were known for their immense strength and unusually high defense, but even they had weaknesses. In this particular case, it was the jaw. He paused briefly, a faint smirk crossing his face as he gestured with his free hand, the blade still close to his neck. Quietly, he thought that perhaps a steel hammer strike would have achieved the same result. Chihiri's eyes shifted to him. She asked about his red eyes, and MC replied that it was a genetic condition, a lack of melanin, that made his eyes appear that way. That was why he often kept them covered. The stares of others made him uncomfortable. Then with a dry tone, he asked if he still looked like a zombie to her. Chihiri hesitated. She could not reconcile the idea that a zombie could protect its own daughter. Finally, she lowered her weapon and said she would keep watch over him. As she turned, two male soldiers rushed toward her, their voices full of concern. "Are you okay?" one of them asked. Without warning, Chihiri kicked one soldier in frustration and demanded to know why the civilians had not been evacuated to the parking lot. The soldier quickly explained that panic had spread among the people. Chihiri's eyes narrowed. If the monster hadn't been killed, everyone in the mart would be dead. "And if something like this happens again, I will kill you myself," she snapped. Then without another word, she walked away, leaving the soldiers silent, one of them glaring after her. Inside the mart's plaza, murmurs rose among survivors resting on gray mats between the tall shelves. They were tired, but alive. Dami ran toward MC, relief and worry visible in her eyes. "Thank God you're okay," she said, almost scolding him for making her worry. MC apologized softly and explained that Chayeri was not someone who fell for bluffing or drew her weapon recklessly. Dami asked if he knew her. MC replied that she only seemed that way. Curious, Dami asked, "Since when do you know what a bluff is?" MC smiled faintly. "You taught me." Dami frowned, insisting she had never done such a thing, but MC only smiled again, thinking back on their shared memories. The MC stood up, telling Dami to wait while he got something to eat. As he walked away, he remembered the promise he had made to her, to never reveal his true nature. She had warned him that if people discovered what he was becoming, it could cause panic, or worse. When he returned, he found Dami sleeping. He covered her with a blanket. She had fallen asleep while he'd been lost in thought. His mind raced. Why were zombies appearing faster than before? More than 100 had gathered at the doors, and new types were emerging every week. In all his previous 99 lives, he had never seen anything like this. Everything was changing, and deep down, he suspected the reason might be himself. Elsewhere, a horde of zombies wandered aimlessly, as though searching for the MC and his daughter. He thought, perhaps his existence disturbed them, perhaps they feared him. One thing was certain, to the zombies, the MC had become a variable. He gripped an axe and prepared for what was coming. Snapping a steel stair railing in half, he wielded it like a weapon. Murmuring to himself, he said, "Before my daughter wakes up, I have to cook." The horde charged. The MC moved with precision, striking each zombie sharply. One by one, they fell. He leapt into the air, slamming down with full force, crushing several at once. Then he grabbed his axe, swinging it cleanly through the air and cutting through the remaining zombies until none were left. The final zombie's head hit the ground with a thud. Silence at last. Morning arrived. Dami slowly woke to the smell of food. The MC stood calmly, preparing breakfast. She opened her eyes, and he asked gently if she was hungry. The scene shifted to Chiyeri's office. A soldier reported that around 5 a.m., loud noises had been heard, and all zombies in the area were found dead. According to the morning scouting report, Chiyeri slammed her hand on the desk in disbelief. "That's impossible. Who could have done this? Did they fight each other?" she demanded. The soldier insisted he had seen it with his own eyes. It was true. Chiyeri fell silent, processing the news. Then she commanded her team to gather everyone immediately. From that moment onward, she declared, their operation to secure the mart would officially begin. A survivor stood by the grimy window of their high-rise shelter, his expression frozen in disbelief. "Whoa," he muttered quietly. Below the streets were completely empty. "It's real." Another man joined him, scanning the silent cityscape with wide eyes. "Those things? They're gone. I don't see anyone out there." Soon, the rest of the survivors gathered, whispering among themselves. One of the men let out a shaky laugh. "All the zombies are gone." Another cheered. "So, we're safe now?" At that moment, Dami ran toward MC, calling his name with excitement. "It really looks like they're gone," she said. MC said nothing at first. He simply picked up a yellow helmet and placed it gently on Dami's head. "Keep this on," he told her firmly. "No matter what happens, don't take it off." Before Dami could ask why, Captain Chahiyeri appeared from behind, her boots echoing through the hall. She called everyone's attention and began her announcement. "All the zombies in this area have been confirmed eliminated," she said. "We'll be leaving this place now." The crowd fell silent for a moment, then erupted in disbelief. "Leave? Why?" someone shouted. "If there are no zombies here, why should we go?" Yeri's tone stayed calm but firm. She explained that a few days ago, before they lost radio contact, they had received a message from the 2nd Mechanized Infantry Brigade, supposedly the last surviving military force in the Gyeonggi region. They still had armored vehicles, heavy weapons, and most importantly, the capacity to take in civilians. But her explanation didn't calm the crowd. The survivors shouted in protest, furious that she would risk their safety based on a single radio call. "Are you out of your mind?" one yelled. "That's suicide." Another muttered, "If we had a real leader, a man, this wouldn't happen." The noise grew louder until MC finally stepped forward. His voice cut through the chaos. "They'll come back," he said. The room went quiet. One of the civilians scoffed, mocking him. "You talk like you know everything." But when the man looked into MC's eyes, his confidence vanished instantly. MC continued calmly. "If you stay here, you're just waiting to die. The zombies will return. It's only a matter of time." The crowd hesitated, still unsure. Someone asked, "And who's going to guarantee our safety if we leave?" Before Hyeri could answer, MC spoke again. "She will," he said, nodding toward her. "And I'll guarantee it too." Hyeri looked at him, surprised, but said nothing. MC then turned to the crowd. "Let me ask you, if you refuse to follow the soldiers, can you survive on your own? Without weapons, without food, without support?" The room fell silent. Slowly, realization spread across the faces of the survivors. They began whispering among themselves, admitting that the soldiers were the reason they had survived this long. Moments later, the crowd began chanting, "Hail Captain Chahiyeri!" Hyeri stood frozen, shocked at how quickly the atmosphere had changed. Just moments ago, the people had been furious, and now they were rallying behind her. She looked toward MC, still trying to understand how he'd swayed them so effortlessly. MC met her gaze and spoke quietly. "Don't thank me. I'm just used to convincing people when things get desperate. Besides, this is about protecting my daughter too. Then with a faint smile, he added, and if the one leading us is you, Captain, then I'm sure we'll be fine. Hyeri blinked, caught off guard by the remark. Her face tightened slightly as she turned away, ordering preparations for departure. Soon, buses and armored trucks rolled out of the mart's parking lot, carrying the survivors towards safety. Dami sat quietly inside one of the buses, looking out the window, her yellow helmet still on. At the front of the convoy, Chahieri led the way in a military jeep. One of her soldiers glanced outside and spoke softly. It feels strange, crossing the Han River after all this time. Hyeri kept her eyes forward. Stay sharp, she replied. This is only the beginning. Moments later, the convoy slowed. Ahead, a group of zombies stumbled across the road. Hyeri immediately grabbed her radio. Team C, take the civilians to the right. We'll move left and draw their attention. Zombies poured in from both sides. Hyeri's jaw tightened. She ordered her team to reverse and draw the undead into each other's path, causing them to collide and block themselves. As the last wave approached, Hyeri's vehicle roared forward. Hyeri ordered her soldier to drive faster and to take the turn at the end of the bridge. But after making the turn, the zombies were still there, blocking the path. And just then, the MC appeared, driving a massive road roller, crushing the zombies beneath its weight. A massive road roller pushed through the chaos, its headlights cutting across the blood-streaked twilight. This machine, the king of all construction vehicles, was now a weapon of survival, crushing everything under its immense weight. Inside the cabin, the MC controlled the roller with calm focus. The scene shifted to Dami sitting quietly in a military vehicle. She held her bag tightly, lost in thought. She remembered her earlier argument with MC, asking him why it always had to be him taking the risk, and what if the soldiers noticed something strange about him. MC had simply told her that no one else could do it. Her thoughts were interrupted when a soldier shouted that Captain Cha's team had returned. Dami looked out and saw the road roller approaching, covered in dark blood. Captain Chahieri quickly took command again, moving to the front. She instructed the team to stay close and follow the lead vehicle. Under her command, the convoy advanced, crushing through the last remaining zombies blocking the road. By nightfall, they reached the base of the 2nd Mechanized Infantry Brigade, a key checkpoint on their route to Daejeon. MC looked around the fortified camp, recognizing it from his past life. This was one of the few units that had managed to survive for a long time before everything fell apart. Their strength came from disciplined leadership and experience. He felt relieved that they made it here in just 8 days, an almost record-breaking speed, but he knew better than to relax. Even though he had grown stronger, overconfidence could lead to disaster. If he acted recklessly, he could put Dami's life at risk. He reminded himself to stick to his plan and stay alert. The real battle would begin now. As the soldiers began to relax, one of them approached MC, expressing genuine respect. None of them had dared to drive the road roller through that kind of horde. But MC had done it without hesitation. MC gave a faint nod in response, not saying much. After the vehicle stopped, Captain Chahieri approached and thanked him for his effort. MC looked slightly confused, asking what she said, but before anything more could be said, they were greeted by members of the Mechanized Infantry Brigade. Sergeant Lee Inhui stepped forward to welcome them. Hyeri saluted, asking if he recognized her. The sergeant replied that they had already been informed about her arrival, that Colonel Cha himself had mentioned her. She seemed surprised to hear that, but her expression changed when the sergeant awkwardly added that the colonel had joked about a stubborn female officer likely to cause a scene. Hyeri was clearly irritated by the remark and demanded to know where the colonel was now. The sergeant explained that Colonel Cha Pung-ho had gone to the rear gate, where some zombies had appeared. Hyeri frowned, wondering if he had gone alone, and commented that it would be difficult for someone his age to handle it personally. The sergeant didn't answer, but he knew the truth. The colonel had indeed gone alone. 30 minutes earlier, at the rear gate, Colonel Cha Pung-ho was moving through the area with surprising agility for his age. He swung his axe with practiced precision, cutting down zombies one after another. From the watchtower, a soldier called down, warning him to be careful and suggesting he use a gun instead. But the colonel only laughed. He said these creatures couldn't do anything to him, that once you reached his level, you could read their movements as if in daylight. He claimed to know exactly how strong they were, adding that the younger soldiers would only get in the way with their poor skills. As he finished clearing the area, he muttered to himself about his aching joints, admitting that age spares no one. He wondered aloud why there was never anyone to replace him, just the same tired faces, day after day. But before he could rest, one of the zombies he had just cut down suddenly began to move again. The colonel sighed, raising his axe once more, saying quietly that it was still alive. Before he could strike, the creature was crushed by a roaring road roller that appeared from the side, flattening it completely. The sudden noise made the nearby soldiers jump. The roller came to a stop, and when its cabin opened, the colonel looked up to see MC stepping out. Their eyes met, and in that instant, Pung-ho sensed something unnatural about him. The calm in his expression carried a quiet, overwhelming power. MC introduced himself simply, saying he was Ryu Min-seok and had arrived with Captain Chahieri. He explained that he'd heard about the situation and came to help. But instead of appreciation, the colonel attacked him without warning, swinging his axe toward MC. The nearby soldiers froze, unable to understand what was happening. To their shock, MC caught the axe mid-swing with his bare hand. The steel blade pressed into his skin, but he didn't flinch. The colonel's eyes widened. "Raise the red alert," he shouted. "Everyone inside. This man is a monster." MC stayed calm, meeting his gaze. He said quietly that the colonel's eyes couldn't be deceived, calling him by name, Colonel Cha Pung-ho. Then, with one strong motion, MC crushed the axe in his grip, breaking it cleanly in half. He told the colonel that he needed to stay here, no matter what, but it seemed words alone wouldn't be enough. So he added that he would prove it in the only way the colonel would understand. Pung-ho was caught off guard by the determination in MC's voice. MC took his stance, ready to fight. The colonel straightened, realizing what was about to happen. The standoff between the two was inevitable. The colonel looked at MC with a faint, almost amused grin. "So, you really want to fight me?" he asked, beginning to remove his heavy armor piece by piece. He muttered that he'd met plenty of crazy people in his life, but none like this. Still, he was curious. How did this man know he'd be interested in that kind of challenge? Moments later, the two faced each other, their eyes locked. The sparring began. On the other side of the camp, alarms blared through the air. The dreaded red code signal. Soldiers rushed into position, ordering all civilians to get inside the shelter immediately. Captain Chahieri, startled by the sudden chaos, demanded to know what was happening. A soldier told her that explanations would come later. But for now, she needed to move everyone to safety. Before she could respond, another soldier hurried over and asked if she was Captain Cha. When she confirmed, he looked frustrated and said, "Then you need to explain what kind of monster you brought here." "He's attacking our colonel." The word monster made Hayeri freeze. Dami, standing beside her, also looked alarmed. The soldier mentioned MC's name, and that was enough to send a wave of panic through both of them. Meanwhile, inside the training yard, MC and Colonel Cha Pung-ho's battle raged on. Each strike sent shockwaves through the concrete walls. The colonel's eyes widened when MC shattered a section of the wall with a single punch. He asked in disbelief if MC still claimed to be human. When the colonel's guard slipped for a moment, MC moved behind him in an instant, preparing to strike. But Pung-ho reacted just as fast, dodging and countering with a heavy punch to MC's face. He grabbed MC by the collar, breathing hard, and demanded to know if MC was holding back. MC calmly admitted that he was, because if he went all out, he might accidentally kill him. For a moment, silence filled the space. The colonel's instincts told him MC wasn't lying. Every muscle in his body could feel it. This man's power was far beyond anything he'd ever encountered. The colonel asked what MC was really after. MC replied that he wanted the colonel's protection. Pung-ho frowned, confused. "Why would someone like you need protection?" MC shook his head and said it wasn't for himself. It was for his daughter. He wanted the colonel to allow her to stay here, safely among the people. The colonel was taken aback when MC suddenly dropped to one knee, bowing his head. MC said that if the colonel agreed to protect his daughter, he would do anything in return. Later that night, rumors spread throughout the civilian camp. People whispered about MC, calling him a monster. Some said his eyes glowed red like a zombie's. Others wondered if he was even human at all. Inside a dimly lit cell, MC sat quietly, his hands bound by chains. He thought back to his earlier conversation with the colonel. Pung-ho had agreed to let the civilians stay within the brigade, but there was still one problem. He didn't trust MC. MC had understood. He told the colonel to keep him locked in isolation if that would ease his doubts. Now sitting in confinement, MC silently promised himself he would prove he wasn't a threat, no matter how long it took. Sometime later, someone appeared at the window. It was Dami. MC looked up in surprise, asking how she'd gotten in. She smiled softly and said she'd gotten permission from the soldiers. The shelter felt too cramped and she wanted to see him. MC apologized, saying he had promised not to draw attention to himself, but had broken that promise again. Dami told him not to blame himself. She reminded him that it was because of him everyone, including her, had made it this far safely. She said she trusted him completely. Then, glancing at her watch, she said she had to go. Roll call was at 10. Before leaving, she told him to take care of himself. As she walked away, she stopped just beyond the hallway, tears silently streaming down her face. A few moments later, soldiers entered the cell and informed MC that the colonel was calling for him. When MC arrived, Colonel Pung-ho was already studying a tactical map. He explained that 20 minutes earlier, their acoustic sensors had detected multiple survivor signals within the collapsed Goopaball station, along with an unknown, unidentified frequency mixed in. He emphasized that time was critical. Sending a large group would slow the mission down, so he decided on a small elite team, himself and MC. The colonel looked at MC and reminded him of his earlier words. "You said you'd do anything for me. Here's your chance to prove it." Without hesitation, MC stood up, snapping the heavy chains that had held him in place. The soldiers nearby stared in disbelief. MC looked directly at the colonel and asked when they were leaving. The colonel smirked and replied, "Right now, bitch." The camera pans across a ruined city, buildings half collapsed, streets silent except for distant groans echoing through the air. Inside one of the buildings, a group of survivors huddled together in the dim light. Among them, a woman held her crying child tightly. The child's small voice echoed through the silence, drawing uneasy glances from others. One man snapped, saying it was already a panic situation, and that the noise could get them all killed. Before things got tense, an elderly woman stepped in, defending the mother. She said gently, "It's just a child. He doesn't understand what's happening." But the crying didn't stop. The child looked up again, calling softly, "Baba?" Confused, the mother followed his gaze and froze. Looking down at her from the broken ceiling above was a zombie, its decayed face dripping with blood. The scene cut to the streets outside, where countless zombies wandered aimlessly through the fog. Suddenly, a roaring engine broke the silence. A massive armored truck crashed through the horde, crushing everything in its path. Inside the cabin, Colonel Cha was at the wheel, grinning. He looked over at MC and laughed, saying that this machine was far better than MC's old road roller. Once the path was cleared, the colonel began explaining the mission. He told MC that there were two main obstacles. First, the subway entrance was completely collapsed, and the tracks were buried under debris. Second, an unknown entity was trapped inside the tunnels with a group of survivors. They had no idea what it was, only that it was dangerous. He explained that the Goopaball station ventilation shafts were still intact and large enough for infiltration. The plan was simple. They would enter through the vents and rescue every survivor trapped below. Then he asked MC if he agreed, but MC shook his head. He said this operation would fail. The colonel frowned, demanding to know what he meant. MC looked serious. He told him that in all his previous attempts, no matter how well they planned, the number of survivors rescued was always 0. The colonel was confused, but MC's expression didn't change. Then the scene shifted, back inside the station, showing what MC meant. The survivors who were hiding earlier slowly regained consciousness, hanging upside down from the ceiling, wrapped in thick web-like material. Panic filled the air as they struggled to move. The woman from before, the one with the baby, screamed in fear. Her child was missing. Nearby, an impatient man shouted for others to untie him first. Before anyone could respond, the old lady who had defended the mother earlier turned toward him. Her eyes were blank, her mouth twitching unnaturally. And before the man could react, she lunged and bit him. The screams echoed through the underground. As the man fell, his body began to twist, transforming into another zombie before everyone's eyes. Chaos broke out instantly as the infected began attacking the remaining survivors. Amidst the panic, the woman desperately searched for her child. Then, she heard it, a faint cry. "Mama?" It came from below, down the stairs. Ignoring everyone's warnings, she ran. A young boy tried to stop her, but she pushed past. The boy's father yelled at him to move, only to look back and see a swarm of zombies rushing toward them. The woman reached the lower floor, panting, only to stop in horror. Standing before her was a giant, grotesque creature, shaped like a baby. The creature reached out and grabbed her, its jaw opening wide. Just as it was about to devour her, the wall beside them exploded in a burst of fire. Flames engulfed the room. Through the blaze, a figure stepped out. MC, his body covered in ash and light reflecting off his eyes. His earlier words echoed in the colonel's mind. "You've tried every possible way, but not once have you saved a single survivor. That's because this situation can't be solved in a human way." Now standing amidst the flames, MC looked less like a man, and more like the force that would change everything. The flames slowly died down, revealing the creature that had been hiding in the shadows. It wasn't just any zombie. This one was different. Its long, thin legs twitched like a spider's, and its body pulsed with dark veins. It was a high-grade mutant, something far beyond the usual infected. MC observed it carefully. He explained that this creature hunted humans by knocking them unconscious and mimicking their faces, pretending to be one of them before striking again. He added that its exoskeleton was similar to that of an actual spider, strong, but also extremely vulnerable to heat. In other words, fire was its greatest weakness. The monster shrieked and lunged toward him. MC's hands burst into flames as he met its attack head-on. He struck it repeatedly, each punch sending waves of heat that melted through its shell. The ground cracked beneath them from the sheer force of their fight. Just as MC prepared to end it, a voice cried out. The woman from before, the mother, stumbled forward, screaming for him to stop. She begged MC not to hurt her daughter. Her words made him pause for a moment, and that moment was enough. The spider-like zombie lashed out again, knocking MC back and sending the woman crashing to the floor, unconscious. The monster let out an ear-splitting screech, releasing waves of sonic pressure that made MC drop to one knee. His vision blurred, and his strength began to fade. But then, a memory flashed in his mind. Dami's face, her voice telling him she believed in him no matter what. That was enough. MC roared, slamming his head against the ground to clear his senses. The shock stunned the creature, making it hesitate. When it looked back at him, confused, MC stood up with burning eyes. In an instant, he rushed forward and drove his flaming fist straight into its head, blasting it apart. But he didn't stop there. He kept hitting over and over until the creature's shrieks turned into silence. MC looked down coldly and said, "From now on, the only thing coming out of your mouth will be screams." He delivered one final, crushing kick that sent the monster's body crashing into the wall. Meanwhile, in another part of the station, the remaining survivors were trapped in a room, holding the door shut as zombies clawed from the other side. Their fear grew with every second. They thought this was the end. Then, a boy tugged at his father's sleeve. "Dad, can't you feel it?" he said quietly. The man frowned. "What do you mean?" The boy replied. "The zombies. They stopped moving when silence filled the room, and then, a single loud crash. The door was kicked open. The survivors screamed, bracing for death. But instead, they saw MC standing there. His body was covered in blood and ash, his muscles tensed, and every zombie behind him lay motionless on the ground. He didn't say a word. He simply stood there, breathing heavily. Later, outside the ruined subway, Colonel Cha stood laughing in disbelief. They had counted 37 survivors, all rescued safely. A place once thought to be a sealed tomb had become the site of a miracle. From that day forward, everyone began calling MC the Miracle Man. The civilians cheered for him, their faces bright with hope. Among them were Captain Chahieri and Colonel Cha himself, both smiling proudly. The colonel looked at MC and said, "You passed with a perfect score." Moments later, Dami ran toward her father and threw her arms around him. MC gently hugged her back, relieved that she was safe. But peace never lasts long. Somewhere in a quiet room of the brigade base, a soldier sat beside his resting comrade. The man had been coughing ever since the mission, too weak to move. His friend placed some food beside him and said softly, "Rest for now. I'll bring medicine later." He closed the door and left. Inside the dimly lit room, the injured soldier lay still for a moment. Then, his neck twitched. A small, dark hole was visible. His eyes slowly opened, pale and lifeless. And when he looked up, his face was no longer human. After the intense battle, the survivors, soldiers, and the MC finally got a moment of peace. Inside the base, laughter and relief filled the air. Everyone was celebrating the victory, enjoying food, drinks, and the rare feeling of safety. The colonel raised a can of beer toward the MC and said he always knew the MC was different, but never imagined he'd pull off something this remarkable. He chuckled and told the MC that from now on, he'd be counting on him even more. Looking at the men around, the colonel smiled faintly and said that on nights like this, they ought to drink. But keep it simple. If the two of them got drunk alone, the others might feel left out. Then he lifted his can again and said, "Let's toast to those who left this hell first, and to us who'll survive to the very end." The MC clinked cans with him but asked quietly, "Why didn't you ever ask me? Why I was sure your operation would fail, or why I turned into this?" The colonel paused, then replied calmly. He said he didn't care about the past, not how or why the MC became this way. All that mattered now was his will to save others in this world of chaos. He laughed lightly and said, "For the family we've built here, that's all we need." The MC smiled faintly and said that the colonel hadn't changed one bit. Then the colonel leaned forward and asked a question of his own. He reminded the MC that his destination was Daejeon and wondered why he was still here. With his strength, he could have left long ago. The MC looked down and said there was still something he had to do in this brigade. Deep down, he remembered how rushing ahead always led to losing the Dami. And he didn't want to make that mistake again. The colonel noticed the silence and guessed the reason. He said softly that it must be because of the MC's daughter. The MC looked surprised and asked how he knew. The colonel smiled and said, "It's easy to tell. The closest thing in this world, and the hardest to let go of, is your child." After a short silence, the MC asked about Captain Cha. But as soon as he mentioned the name, the colonel laughed awkwardly, taking a deep sip from his can and ordering more beer. Moments later, Dami walked up, looking tired. She told her father she was going to head in first for the night. The MC smiled and told the colonel he'd step out for a while. Dami tried to tell him to stay and relax, but he still decided to go with her. The colonel watched them leave. For the first time, he noticed that the MC could smile. A real, warm smile. And it made him think. He realized that letting the MC go wouldn't be easy. Thanks to him, the colonel could finally bring Chapung Ho's plan back into motion. Not long after, one of the soldiers stumbled in, looking pale and terrified. The colonel turned and froze. The man was trembling, barely holding himself together. He told the colonel that there was a serious problem. The scene shifted to the MC, walking beside Dami. He was lost in thought, remembering the conversation with the colonel. After a moment, he asked her quietly if she was ever afraid of him, because he looked nothing like the father she once knew. Dami looked at him and said that yes, she was scared. Every single day, she lived in fear that one day he might hurt her too. Her voice trembled as she added, "It's too hard to keep pretending anymore. So tell me, where is my real papa, you monster?" The MC froze, but then reality snapped back. That wasn't real. It was just his imagination, a voice echoing from his own doubts. Dami looked up and asked what he was thinking about. He smiled weakly and said, "It's nothing." She started coughing again, and he told her she should have worn something warmer. She had been coughing a lot lately. He told her to go inside, he'd bring her some medicine. As she turned away, the MC suddenly sensed something. His expression sharpened. He called out to Dami and got ready to attack. She flinched in fear, but it turned out to be nothing more than a mosquito hovering near him. He caught it with his hand, but when he looked closer, he realized it wasn't normal. It was a zombie mosquito. At that moment, the alarm blared through the camp. The siren gold black, alert, and on the other side of the base, the colonel stood frozen. Before him, the soldier who had come to report earlier had turned into a zombie. The peace they celebrated was over. Once again, hell had returned. The scene opened with a quiet conversation between the colonel and the MC. The colonel told him that when he first saw him, he had given him a name, Eater. At that time, he said, the MC looked terrifying, with that bloated body and monstrous presence. But after seeing how he tore apart that spider-type zombie earlier, the colonel admitted that the Eater didn't look so ugly anymore. In fact, he looked rather impressive. The MC didn't respond right away. He simply said that the monsters were evolving, becoming more cunning, stronger, and harder to predict. He explained that their threat wouldn't stop here. That was why he had chosen this location, because within this area stood Ba'a, Blue Hawk, the roaming battlefield once commanded by Ba'a Pungho, the colonel himself, a fortress with firepower greater than an entire battalion. Before their talk could continue, chaos broke out again. The colonel had just ripped off a zombie's head with his bare hands. Looking at the bloodied remains, he shouted at his soldiers to start evacuating the civilians to the underground shelters immediately. But the soldiers froze, shocked by the brutal scene. The colonel glared and shouted again, louder this time, ordering them to move now. Snapping out of it, the soldiers rushed to obey, guiding people towards safety. The colonel stared down at the severed head, frowning. He wondered how the infection had breached his brigade's defenses. Then he noticed something unusual, a small bulging hole at the side of the zombie's neck. Before he could think further, he heard a rush of footsteps. More zombies were charging in. He kicked one away and used a steel rod to crush another's skull. Between attacks, he yelled for his men to bring the MC there immediately. He swung his weapon again and again, breaking jaws and smashing skulls. The colonel was holding the line alone. Meanwhile, inside the shelter, the MC was helping Dami adjust her protective suit. He told her firmly not to remove her helmet or take off the suit, no matter what. Dami asked what kind of zombie they were facing this time. The MC replied that it was a mosquito-type zombie, a mutation that infected its victims by biting them. Once bitten, a person would slowly turn into one of them. He looked tense. In his past life, he had only seen this variant once. He hadn't expected to face it here. The thought filled him with anger, but also determination. He swore to protect his daughter, no matter what. He knew that these mosquito-type zombies usually came in swarms, acting as extensions of a much larger main body hiding elsewhere. Elsewhere, Captain Chahieri was being briefed on the situation by one of the soldiers. He explained that the MC had ordered everyone to cover their bodies completely and minimize exposed skin. Chahieri immediately commanded her troops to do the same, to cover every inch of skin and prepare for external suppression. She then asked about the whereabouts of the brigade commander. But before the soldier could answer, another ran up, out of breath. He shouted that there was a zombie outside the brigade. Chahieri frowned. Just one zombie? She told him that if there was only one, it couldn't be a priority when there was chaos inside. But the soldier shook his head. He said its appearance was different, strange. He hesitated, trying to describe it, saying it looked almost like a giant toad with a distorted face. Then, before they could react, the creature's stomach split open, releasing hundreds of mosquitoes. The soldier shouted in horror that the monster was spewing them out through its mouth. Chahieri immediately ordered her team to retreat inside the building. Just then, a burst of flames cut through the sky. The MC appeared, descending from above, carrying a flamethrower. Moments earlier, civilians had begged him to help deal with the creature, but he had refused, saying his only priority was protecting his daughter. But Dami had looked him in the eyes and said that she couldn't do anything to help others, only he could. Those words stuck with him. That was why he was here now. The MC aimed the flamethrower and unleashed a roaring blaze. The swarm of mosquito zombies shrieked as fire engulfed them, burning their bodies to ashes midair. The last of the mosquitoes fell, their wings turning to ash under MC's flames. The air was thick with smoke and silence. Across the burning streets, a toad-like zombie stood watching him. Its swollen body pulsed, leaking black fluid. MC stared back, calm but furious. Then without warning, the creature leapt away, trying to escape. MC didn't hesitate. He jumped straight off the rooftop, landing hard on top of a military jeep. Behind the wheel was Chahieri. Startled, she looked up. "You mean that thing's the one causing all this mess?" she asked. MC gave a small nod. "You probably know how to kill it, right?" "Yeah," he replied simply. Yeri smirked, tightening her grip on the wheel. "Good. We'll deal with it first. After that, I've got a mountain of questions for you. And if you mock me again, I'm not letting you go easily." The jeep roared forward, chasing the toad zombie through shattered roads and burning debris. Their pursuit ended near a mountain on the city's outskirts. The toad stopped before a large cave, and then crawled inside. That creature wasn't an ordinary zombie. It belonged to a rare, elite breed known as a slider. A host-type zombie capable of endlessly multiplying its own kind. These creatures hid deep within caves and tunnels, spawning countless copies to spread infection. From the darkness, the true host emerged, a grotesque, shifting mass of flesh. Before it could react, MC appeared above it, slamming it hard into the ground. The monster screeched and vomited out a swarm of infected mosquitoes, but Hyeri, from behind, unleashed her flamethrower, turning them all to ash. A little earlier, Cha Hyeri had been on her radio, relaying updates. She reported that the brigade had entered the cleanup stage, and that civilians, including MC's daughter, were now safe. Hearing that, MC finally breathed easier. He thought to himself, even if things go wrong, this brigade always recovers fast. That kind of strength only comes from true leadership. That was exactly why he had chosen to serve under Colonel Chapunkoho. When he thanked Hyeri for the information, she shook her head. No, you're the one who saved us. The quick suppression was thanks to your first call. MC's tone hardened. It's not over yet. If we don't kill the host, the brigade will be in danger again. Hyeri nodded. So we just cut off its retreat? Exactly, MC replied. But that won't be enough. The slider's strength lies in its endless replication. It keeps spawning. Thousands, maybe millions. Even if we kill the host, the swarm will regenerate. Hyeri frowned. Then there's no way to stop it? She looked at him again. But, you have a plan, don't you? MC simply answered. Yeah, back to the present. Inside the cave, MC began sealing every tunnel, collapsing walls and cutting off all escape routes. There's only one way to stop them, he muttered. Lock them in, and keep killing until nothing's left. He stood alone in the dark, surrounded by countless crawling shapes. Their screeches echoed through the tunnels. Killing you all at once would be too easy, he said coldly. Then he unleashed his fury, turning the darkness into a storm of fire and screams. Outside, Hyeri waited, her expression tense. She whispered to herself. What even is he? Her mind flashed back to Colonel Pungho's words. From now on, you'll support MC, no matter what. She had been confused then. Why him, sir? Pungho had looked her straight in the eye. Because he's not just another fighter in our brigade, he's humanity's answer. Back in the present, Hyeri called through her radio, trying to reach the colonel, but there was no reply. Night turned to day. After 18 hours, 26 minutes, and 34 seconds, a single hand broke through the rubble of the collapsed cave. It was MC. He dragged himself out, body broken, twisted, and burned, but still alive. The final count of enemies, 7,127,446 entities, every single one annihilated. As the sun rose, MC's wounds began to twist and close, his body regenerating completely. Later that night, Hyeri stood silently before Colonel Pungho, her expression unreadable. The next day, Colonel Pungho sat back comfortably, munching on some snacks as if nothing had happened. Across from him, Cha Hyeri stared in disbelief, clearly irritated by his calm attitude. The colonel glanced at her and asked casually, "What's with that face?" Hyeri frowned. "Yesterday, over the radio, I heard you were in danger." The colonel burst into laughter. "The look on your face? It's hilarious. You should see a mirror," he said, still chuckling. Then he added teasingly, "Yesterday, you were furious with me, and now you're worried I might die." One of the nearby soldiers stepped forward, explaining that Commander Pungho had fought off every zombie in the plaza by himself, barehanded, without any gear. Because of him, all the civilians were safely evacuated. The colonel nodded with a grin. "Got a little banged up in the process, but I'm fine. Not quite what I used to be, though." Annoyed, Hyeri clicked her tongue. "I can't believe I was worried about an old geezer for nothing." The colonel narrowed his eyes. "Watch your mouth, girl. I'm still your superior." Then he asked, "By the way, why are you alone? Where's MC? Did you two take care of that toad zombie?" Hyeri paused before replying. "Yesterday, you told me MC is humanity's answer, and somehow I think I'm starting to understand what you meant." Elsewhere, MC stood alone as the people around him waved and cheered. For once, the brigade was at peace. The next day, Hyeri sat by herself, holding a cold drink in her hand, trying to think of a way to approach MC. She wanted to thank him for saving everyone, but the words just wouldn't come out right. "How am I supposed to act normal?" she muttered to herself, frustrated. Two soldiers passing by noticed her. One of them asked, "What's she doing over there?" The other shrugged. "Who knows? Whatever it is, she just wanted to find the right words to thank MC sincerely." Then, she spotted MC talking with Colonel Pungho nearby. It seemed like the perfect chance. It wouldn't feel too awkward if all three were there. As she approached, she overheard their conversation. MC was explaining to the colonel that he and his daughter would be leaving that night. The colonel looked surprised. "You're really heading to Daejeon already? I can't stop you, but do you have to rush like this? If something worse than the sliders shows up, our brigade won't survive. Stay with us until we build more strength." But MC shook his head. "Why should I? Whether this brigade lives or dies, it has nothing to do with me." Hyeri froze where she stood, stunned by his words. Unable to hold back, she stepped forward. "Do you really mean that?" MC looked at her calmly. "Yes. The only thing that matters to me is my daughter, Dami. Whatever happens to the others doesn't concern me." Hyeri's face hardened with anger. Unbelievable, she muttered, before walking away. But MC's expression didn't change. Deep down, he knew exactly what he was doing. He had seen this kind of thing before. When people spent too long together, sharing danger and survival, they started to get attached. An attachment in this world meant weakness. Hyeri was strong, but the more she cared, the more danger she'd be in. So MC decided to end it before it began. To keep her safe, he had to push her away. After Hyeri left, the colonel sighed. You should be careful with her, he said quietly. Don't just push people away coldly. Think rationally. In a world like this, you really believe Daejin will stay untouched? Wouldn't it be better to stay and build this place into something stronger, together? MC considered his words. With him and the colonel working together, there was no doubt they could turn this brigade into a true fortress. But then he remembered. In his past life, it had taken 10 years for an elite creature like the Slider to appear. This time, it happened in just 10 days. If others started appearing this fast, this place would collapse long before it could be fortified. MC looked at the colonel. I've made up my mind, he said. I'm leaving tonight, with my daughter. The colonel was still trying to convince MC to stay. But MC's decision was final. Instead, he offered a proposal. Colonel, he said, you've always dreamed of building the perfect shelter, right? Aren't you curious to see it for yourself? After that, at night, the MC rode his road roller alongside Colonel Tank and the military, crushing and killing zombies along the way. The MC was leading them toward Daejeon to see the situation for themselves. The storm raged on. Lightning flashed across the sky, lighting up the dark bridge ahead. Through the flashes, the colonel caught sight of a massive creature, its body swollen and glistening with a thick, greenish fluid. He froze, shocked by what he was seeing. Beside him, MC spoke calmly, his eyes fixed on the monster. That thing is called Viscous, he said, an elite-class zombie. Its entire body secretes poison, not just from one spot, but everywhere. Even touching it can be fatal. The colonel clenched his jaw. And that's the only bridge left to reach Daejeon. MC nodded. When it's exposed to ultraviolet light, the poison on its skin hardens. That's when its agility drops. At that moment, cut off the protrusion at the center of its head. That's its weak point. The colonel turned to his men. We'll wait 2 hours for UV exposure. Keep scanning the area for any other life readings. A soldier checked the scanner. None, sir. It's the only one nearby. Good, the colonel said. Rest for now. Prepare your gear. As the team began setting up camp, a few soldiers whispered behind them. One of them muttered, don't you think it's strange? How does MC know all this stuff about zombies? Another shrugged. He's an expert, maybe? But the first soldier frowned. No, it's too specific. It's like he's lived through all this before. Even the colonel doesn't know half this much. And now he's wasting our last few shells just because MC said so. Maybe the old man's losing it. Before he could finish, a hand suddenly grabbed his ear and twisted it hard. The colonel stood behind him with a glare. Not far away, a small jeep door opened. MC's daughter, Dami, climbed out, stretching her arms and rubbing her lower back. Sitting too long makes my butt hurt, she grumbled. MC appeared silently behind her, making her jump. Geez, she scolded. Don't sneak up like that. He smiled slightly and handed her some snacks. Here, eat something. As she munched, she mumbled, I think I'm finally getting used to your face. MC paused. A strange look flickered across his eyes. I don't really look like your dad anymore, do I? Dami blinked, confused. Huh? Realizing what he said, MC quickly shook his head. I didn't mean it that way. I just meant, I've changed a lot. It must be hard for you to see me as your father now. Then quietly, he added, but I'm still grateful you do. His voice trailed off. There was a question he'd carried for a long time, one he could never bring himself to ask. Why? Why did she still accept him as her father, even after what he'd become? He was afraid of her answer, but Dami looked at him softly. Your eyes, she said. They're the same. MC looked at her, puzzled. She continued. Mom left when I was 7. From then till now, you've always had those same eyes. Eyes that looked at me like I was the most beautiful thing in the world. Eyes filled with guilt every time you looked at me. I used to hate that, you know? Because you were the one who looked the most broken. Her voice trembled slightly. 2 weeks ago, when that door opened, and someone stumbled in covered in blood, I was terrified. But then I saw those same eyes. Warm, even through the pain. That's how I knew. You're my dad. No matter what MC didn't respond. He just smiled faintly, his heart too full to speak. The next morning, the squad gathered at the bridge. The massive creature, Viscous, loomed ahead, blocking the only path to Daejeon. Fire! The colonel shouted. Gunfire erupted, echoing through the valley. Bullets tore into the monster's body, but it roared, thrashing wildly. Through the chaos, MC charged forward, twin axes in his hands. The soldiers shouted after him, but he didn't stop. He swung both blades with precise force, cleaving straight into the monster's head. A single blow split the creature in half, and the battlefield fell silent. The soldier from the previous night watched in disbelief. I get it now, he said quietly. I was wrong to doubt him. Another soldier beside him replied, It's not about belief anymore. In this hell, all we can do is trust him. There's no other choice. As the team caught their breath, MC stood atop the creature's corpse, looking down at it in silence. For a brief moment, his mind drifted back to his 99th life. Back then, it had taken him 378 days to reach Daejeon. But now, in his 100th life, it had only been 14 days since the outbreak began. After countless struggles, he had finally arrived. This time, everything would be different. The scene opens with a flashback, 11 days ago. It's day 3 of the zombie outbreak. In the city of Daejeon, inside the Doryong neighborhood, a military officer speaks into his radio, his voice heavy but steady. "Target extermination complete," he reports. On the other end, the response is filled with relief. The soldiers cheer. They've successfully defended the Daejeon line, but their joy is short-lived. One soldier reports that other cities have either been completely wiped out or have lost communication entirely. The commander asks, "Any update from Unit 5? The reply comes back. Their last transmission was an hour ago. They said they were holding the line. After that, nothing. The commander's face hardens. The spread of infection is happening far too fast. He mutters under his breath. How are we supposed to fight something like this? Is this really the end of South Korea? Yet even in despair, he finds a moment to praise his men. You've done well, Blue Hawk Unit. You held the defense when no one else could. Stay strong. Moments later, another call comes through the radio, requesting permission to expand operations to the Dunsan district. The commander doesn't hesitate. Permission granted. Complete the mission at all costs. He lowers the radio and whispers to himself. Jiwoo, I'm counting on you. If Daejeon can hold, then maybe, just maybe, we can fight back. But as the soldiers on the front line look around, one of them suddenly shouts, "Above us!" They turn and see a creature perched high on a building, a horrifying sight. Its muscles bulging unnaturally, its grin wide and twisted. It's a zombie. But the scene cuts back to the present. MC and the others stand on a ridge, overlooking the city of Daejeon. Everyone stares in awe. The city stands tall, walls still intact, lights flickering faintly through the mist. The colonel lets out a low whistle. It's even better than I expected. No wonder you kept talking about this place, MC. The soldiers murmur in disbelief. A functioning city, still standing after everything. It feels unreal. Dami looks at her father. Dad, this place, it's exactly how you described it. But then she stops. Something in his expression frightens her. MC stands still, his fists clenched tight. His instincts, the ones sharpened through 100 lives, are screaming. Something feels wrong. Because when the zombie apocalypse first began, Daejeon, along with several other cities, had fallen to the outbreak. It was later slowly but surely reclaimed by the army. But in this timeline, Daejeon was completely fine and untouched, which wasn't supposed to happen. He finally speaks, his voice calm but tense. Listen to me, Dami. From now on, don't ever leave my side. She blinks, confused. Why are you saying that? You're scaring me. Before he can answer, the colonel calls out to everyone. Move! We don't have much time. Let's head in. Just as they start moving, a soldier runs up, calling for the colonel. Commander, we've got something. You need to see this. He shows the colonel a tablet. When we passed Sejong earlier, I noticed something strange on the plains. Huge lines, like someone carved them into the ground. They were too big to see clearly, so I sent a drone up. He presses play. The video shows massive symbols, patterns stretching across the earth. The colonel's eyes widen. What in the world? Are these drawings? Before he can say anything else, MC suddenly grabs the tablet from his hands, staring at the screen with intensity. The colonel snaps. What do you think you're doing? But MC doesn't answer. His heart races. He knows this image. He's seen it before. Somewhere else, in a shadowed base, a soldier reports to his superior. 10 unidentified individuals spotted near the mountain. Recon team en route. The voice on the other end replies, calm but cold. Don't take any risks. Bring them in with utmost care. Only then will she be pleased. Back at the colonel's camp, MC is still staring at the tablet. On the screen is a massive angelic symbol, carved into the land itself. The exact same one he saw during his 99th death. His eyes darken as realization hits. Back then, he hadn't understood the strange unease gnawing inside him. But now he knows. Here, in Daejeon, the city he once longed for, he would face for the first time the beginning of a great wave. The chapter opens with the faint flicker of a flame swaying in the wind. A calm voice begins to narrate. Just 2 weeks ago, we were like candles before a storm. The camera pans across a massive crowd gathered in a stadium. Faces filled with both despair and faint hope. Their eyes are fixed on the enormous digital display at the center. The narrator continues. They lost everything. Their families, their friends, their joy. But even then, they clung to one final spark of hope. That hope had a name. Hyun Dalchi, the mayor of Daejeon. On the massive screen, Hyun stands before thousands, wearing a clean white suit that gleams under the flickering floodlights. The people chant his name. Lord Hyun, Lord Hyun. Hyun raises his hands, his voice echoing through the stadium speakers. My beloved citizens, he begins. We have faced a crisis unlike anything in human history. This isn't just our struggle, it's humanity's struggle. And yet, here we stand, alive. Not because of luck, but because we endured. The people cheer again, louder this time, as Hyun's tone grows emotional. I swear upon this final flame, the last light of humanity, I will never let it be extinguished. We will protect it, no matter the cost. The crowd erupts, chanting his name over and over, filling the entire arena with their voices. At that moment, MC and his group arrive at the entrance. The colonel looks around, surprised by the scale of the crowd. So this is the place you mentioned? He asks. But MC shakes his head. No, this isn't what I expected. This is the first time I've seen anything like this. He looks toward the stage again, his expression darkening. In his past life, the Blue Hawk unit stood at the very heart of Daejeon's revival. But here, they were nothing more than guards for a self-proclaimed savior. And worse, their leader, Shin Ji-woo, was nowhere to be seen. MC's eyes narrow. Where is he? What changed this timeline? Who exactly is this Hyun Dalcha? On stage, Hyun continues his speech with an almost divine energy. Today, he says, we have something to celebrate. Our goddess has blessed us with new comrades who have reached our city. He spreads his arms wide, shouting, let us welcome them with a roaring cheer. The audience begins to clap and cheer again, but suddenly, thick smoke fills the arena. People start coughing, confused and scared. MC immediately looks around. Where's this smoke coming from? Who's doing this? Through the haze, he spots Hyun staggering, choking, and behind him stands a man aiming a gun at his head. It's Shin Ji-woo. Without hesitation, Ji-woo pulls the trigger. A gunshot echoes across the arena. Hyun collapses. The entire stadium falls silent for a moment before chaos erupts. People scream, soldiers rush in, and within seconds, Ji-woo is tackled to the ground. MC's eyes widen as he realizes what's happening. Pinned under soldiers, Ji-woo yells desperately, it's over. Everyone, wake up, you're being deceived. But then, Hyun moves. Slowly, impossibly, he stands up again. Gasps spread through the crowd. Lord Hyun, he's alive. Hyun wipes the blood from his mouth, his voice calm and steady. My beloved citizens, he says, I have been blessed this day. This demon tried to take my life, but the goddess has protected me. The crowd's fear turns to anger. They begin shouting, execute him, kill the demon. Hyun raises his hand to quiet them. Thank you, he says softly. The reason I can stand before you once more is because of your faith. You are the true citizens of the Miracle City. The crowd roars in approval, tears in their eyes. Hyun lifts his arms, shouting over the chaos. To this shining history, I make this proclamation. His voice echoes through the arena like thunder. We, the citizens of Daejeon, are humanity's final flame, the undying light of this world. The Miracle City. The cheers grow deafening, drowning out the gunsmoke, the blood, and the fear. And as MC watches from the crowd, his heart sinks. Because deep down, he knows, this isn't a miracle. It's the beginning of something far more dangerous. The next chapter opens with the main character's voice echoing softly in the background. He says that ever since arriving in Daejeon, one question kept haunting him. What was truly happening here? All the strange events, the inconsistencies, and the unease he felt when looking at this city, it was all starting to make sense now. He glances down at his daughter, trembling beside him, and thinks to himself, everything he's seen so far is beginning to connect, like fragments of a puzzle finally aligning. And in that moment, a terrifying truth dawns on him. This man, Hyun Dalche, the so-called savior of Daejeon, is just like him. He's not human anymore. He's a zombie. The scene shifts to a dimly lit briefing room inside the city's headquarters. A group of soldiers sit around a table, still shaken by the chaos that happened earlier in the arena. One of them mutters that something is seriously wrong with this city. The people, the atmosphere. It's like no one is in their right mind. Another soldier adds that the mayor, the man in the black suit, is the strangest of all. He calls him a lunatic, saying he nearly vomited watching that staged performance in front of the citizens. The commander looks at him sharply. What do you mean by that? The soldier explains that he saw everything. When the man was shot, he smiled. The whole thing was fake. It was all propaganda, carefully staged to manipulate the crowd. He shakes his head, saying bitterly that they should stay out of this madness before they're dragged into it. Another soldier nods, agreeing that they should leave Daejeon while they still can. The colonel listens quietly for a moment, then orders everyone to clear the room, except for the MC. When the two are alone, the colonel sits across from MC, his expression grim. He asks directly, tell me, about that man, Hyun Dalchi. Is he the same kind of monster as you? MC doesn't hesitate. So you noticed it too? The colonel nods slowly, admitting that the first time he saw Hyun, he sensed something unnatural, something inhuman. He then asks MC if he already knew about him, or if this was part of some hidden plan. MC shakes his head firmly. No, why would I risk my daughter's life for that? He's a variable even to me. After a long silence, the colonel stands up. Then the conclusion is clear. He says, we're heading back to the brigade. He explains that although he trusts the strength of his unit, the longer they stay here, the more uneasy he feels. He admits that the city's infrastructure and resources are tempting. It looks like the first outpost of humanity's recovery, a place with real potential to rebuild the world. But the colonel says quietly, as long as this place is built on madness, it will never stand. He turns toward MC. My soldiers are right. We leave at dawn. MC simply nods. He agrees. The next morning, MC approaches the local guards, saying he wants to meet the mayor in person. The security detail immediately stops him, warning that no private audiences are allowed. They order him to return to his assigned quarters. MC calmly replies, "Then at least deliver a message. Once he hears it, he'll want to see me himself." Moments later, the scene cuts to Kat, sitting face to face with Hyun Dalche. Hyun looks amused, asking, "So what's this message you wanted to deliver?" MC replies evenly, "You already know. That's why you called me up here, isn't it?" The story briefly flashes back to the conversation MC had with the colonel the night before. MC had warned him that leaving this city wouldn't be easy. Daejeon had turned into a massive cult. Its people were devoted, blind, and easily provoked. "If we try to leave," MC had said, "they'll see us as traitors. Crowds like this can turn violent in an instant. Someone will get hurt. Or worse." He also mentioned that if Hyun truly was the same kind of being as him, then Hyun must have already sensed it. The same tension, the same unease that MC felt. Back in the present, Hyun leans forward, his calm smile fading. "Speak," he says coldly. "No need to pretend anymore." Another quick flashback shows MC telling the colonel that his plan was simple. The next day, he would reveal his identity to Hyun. The colonel had frowned. "That's your plan? To just tell him?" MC had replied, "Not exactly. I'll introduce myself. Differently now." In Hyun's office, MC finally says it. "I'm just like you." One chosen by the goddess. Hyun stares at him for a moment, then lets out a quiet laugh. "So you're saying, you're like me?" he mocks. "Chosen by the goddess?" MC nods. Hyun scratches his head, pretending to think. And in the very next instant, he grabs MC by the head and slams him to the ground. "How dare you?" he snarls, pressing him down. "How dare you claim to be my equal?" Hyun's expression twists with fury. "If you're truly chosen," he says coldly, "then prove it. Show me." He grips MC harder. "Otherwise, you're nothing but a silver-tongued liar." The screen fades to black. Yesterday, during Hyun's grand public show, he had noticed something strange. A faint, foul smell coming from the newcomer, MC. Now, standing face to face in a tense silence, Hyun finally brought it up. He told MC that the same stench still lingered, thick, heavy, and unmistakable. It was enough to make him suspicious from the very beginning. Hyun admitted that he had already planned to summon MC's entire group today, but to his surprise, MC had walked straight into his trap on his own. Then his expression hardened. "How dare you compare yourself to me?" he said coldly. "Show me that you're truly chosen, if you can." In the next instant, Hyun grabbed MC again, but this time, MC broke free, his hand snapping Hyun's fingers with a sharp crack. The two locked eyes, their glares filled with silent fury. Hyun staggered back, clutching his injured hand, his anger boiling. He lunged forward again, and soon, the two were trading blows, each strike heavy and fast, shaking the walls of the room. Outside, a few guards heard the noise. A heavy-set officer ran toward the commotion, shouting, "What's going on in there?" One of the guards replied nervously, "The sound's coming from the mayor's room," but he gave strict orders not to be disturbed. The officer snapped back, "If something happens to him, you'll be held responsible. Open it now." But the guards refused. The mayor said no one is to enter, under any circumstances. Inside, the fight continued. The air shook with every impact as both men exchanged blow after blow, neither holding back. Hyun finally stepped back, panting, and admitted through gritted teeth, "You're not like Shinji Woo. All talk and no strength. You're different." He clenched his fist and shouted, "But don't get carried away. You said you were like me. That I cannot accept." A dark aura flared around him, his voice echoing through the room. "I'll show you. The blessing bestowed upon me by God." Just then, the door burst open. The heavy-set officer barged in, panicking. "What's happening here?" Hyun immediately turned toward him with a calm smile. "Ah, sorry to have worried you." The officer sighed in relief, saying there was no need to apologize. He just wanted to ensure he was safe. But Hyun's tone suddenly turned sharp. "I told everyone not to enter. Why did you disobey?" The man froze, trembling. He lowered his head and began apologizing repeatedly. Hyun ignored him and turned his attention back to MC. "And you? What are you doing here?" MC slowly knelt down, speaking in a steady voice. "It seems there's been some misunderstanding," he said. "When I said we were equals, I didn't mean it that way. As a fellow blessed one, I wish to serve under you." The scene cuts to a flashback from the night before. MC and the colonel were seated together, discussing strategy. The colonel had asked, "You said you'll earn his favor. What exactly are you planning to do? Kneel down, like you did to me that time?" MC had nodded. "Yes, if that's what it takes. People in power, they love that posture. If I present myself as loyal, Hyun won't be able to resist. For someone like him, a potential threat swearing loyalty, it's too tempting to ignore. He'll take the bait." The colonel had frowned. "Are you mocking me?" MC had replied quietly. "No, it's the only way to get out of this city safely." Back in the present, Hyun narrowed his eyes at MC. "You're lying," he said. "You'll pretend to serve me, earn my trust, and then use it to protect yourself and your group. And when the time is right, you'll stab me in the back, won't you?" MC met his gaze without flinching. "So what if that's true?" he said calmly. "Does it really matter to you? Even if I tried to betray you, I'd fail, because you're stronger than me." What matters to me is my group's safety. I won't risk their lives. That's all I care about. He looked straight at Hyun. So tell me, do I still sound like I'm lying? Hyun stared at him in silence, then let out a sharp breath. You're really starting to piss me off, he said. But the more you talk, the more I like you. A grin crept across his face. Fine, I'll accept you. Your companions will be protected, and I'll even give you a special position, by my side. Then without warning, he turned to the fat officer, the same man who had just called him father. Before anyone could react, Hyun's hand pierced straight through his chest. The man collapsed instantly. Hyun unfazed looked at MC. His seat is yours now, he said coldly. But there's one condition. He leaned forward slightly. To earn your place beside me, you'll have to pass my trial. Hyun's grin widened. So tell me, fellow blessed one, are you ready? The next chapter opens with the sound of a furious crowd. All around the square, citizens chant a single word: execution. Their voices echo through the heavy air as tension spreads across the city. At the center of the field stands a massive wooden structure. Bound to it is Ji-woo, silent and bruised, as the people shout for his death. Their anger has reached its peak. They want punishment, not justice. Nearby, a man walks up carrying bottles of wine, offering drinks to the colonel and his officers. They refuse silently, their eyes fixed on the platform ahead. Amid all the noise, Dami looks around anxiously. She turns to the colonel and asks, "Where's my father?" Her voice trembles, but no one answers. The soldiers exchange uncomfortable glances. After a pause, the colonel finally speaks. "Take her away," he orders quietly. "Get her back to the quarters." Two soldiers escort Dami out as she looks back one last time toward the execution ground. Moments later, Hyun steps onto the stage, the crowd immediately going silent. He raises his hand and announces that the execution ceremony is about to begin. But before that, he says he must share a tragic piece of news. That morning, he claims, Ji-woo had tried to escape, and in the process, had murdered the deputy mayor, Kim Sang-chung. The crowd erupts in rage once again, shouting curses toward the man tied to the wooden frame. Hyun waits for them to settle, then continues. "But the goddess is merciful," he says. "She has blessed us with a new candidate for deputy mayor, one chosen to punish the demon who stands before us." He gestures to the side, introducing MC, who steps forward through the crowd. In his hand, a torch burns brightly. The story shifts back to the day before. Hyun and said, "Normally, I'd give this duty to someone I trust, but this time, I'm giving it to you. Killing the demon is the destiny of the blessed. If you truly accept that destiny, prove it." Now, back in the present, MC stands before thousands of citizens. Their chants fill the air. In the crowd, the colonel watches closely, unease on his face. Earlier that evening, MC had already told him about this ceremony, that he was expected to kill someone in front of everyone. The colonel immediately ordered his unit to prepare to leave, but MC stopped him. "As long as Hyun is alive, leaving this place would be suicide," MC said. "Coming here was my decision. Whatever happens now is my responsibility. And if it's for Dami's safety, I can abandon morality without hesitation." As the chants grew louder, MC lifted the torch. After a brief pause, he lowered it, letting the flames touch the ropes binding Ji-woo. The fire caught instantly. The crowd cheered wildly, believing justice had been served. Hyun stepped beside MC, smiling with satisfaction. "In the name of the goddess," he declared, "from this moment MC will stand as my right hand." He turned toward MC. "Do you accept?" After a moment of silence, MC nodded. "I accept." The crowd erupted again, celebrating the end of the so-called traitor and welcoming Hyun's new ally. That night, MC returned quietly to the apartment where his group waited. He removed his bandana and looked at the others. A faint smile crossed his face as he said, "Pleased to meet you." Everyone froze. It wasn't MC's face. It was Ji-woo, alive and standing before them. The colonel stared for a moment, then let out a tired laugh. "He's insane," but he actually pulled it off. A flashback revealed their plan from the night before. The colonel had asked, "You said you'd abandon morality for Dami's sake. But this time you said not this time. What did you mean?" MC replied firmly, "There's no time to explain. Listen carefully. Tonight, when I gain Hyun's trust, I'll swap Ji-woo's place and save him." The colonel stared at him in disbelief, but MC had already made up his mind. Back in the present, flames still flickered outside as MC trained in silence, his movements steady and focused. The plan had succeeded. Ji-woo was free. After the execution, Daejeon began to move again. The city that once drowned in chaos now echoed with the sound of construction, hammers, drills, and rebuilding. Hyun watched his people work with a proud smile, as if admiring a masterpiece of his own creation. Moments later, MC arrived, slightly late. He bowed his head and apologized. "I'm sorry I'm late." Hyun turned to him, grabbed him by the chin, and smiled coldly. "Don't worry, my little soldier. Or should I say, sexy boy," he mocked, then his tone shifted. "But next time, don't make me wait. I don't keep dogs who disobey their master's command. You understand?" MC nodded firmly. "Yes." Satisfied, Hyun released him and said, "Good. There's still some time before the event. Let's have tea in the meantime." As they walked, Hyun casually mentioned, "By the way, I heard Ji-woo burned up quite clearly during the execution." Though one body part somehow survived, his right arm, the story shifts back to the night of the incident. Inside a dimly lit room, Jiwoo sat across from MC, staring at his own right arm, the only thing that survived the staged execution. He smiled faintly. "I thought I was ready for anything," he said, "but it's still hard to get used to this." He looked at MC with gratitude. "If it weren't for you, I'd be dead. You're the only reason I'm still alive." Then his expression hardened. "When I was standing behind Hyun that day, it took everything in me not to attack him. But that moment made me realize something. I can't kill Hyun alone. Only you can." MC frowned. "Why me? I have no reason to kill him now. I'm the vice mayor." He paused before adding, "Don't misunderstand. I saved you because I could. If there had been no way to save you, I would have killed you without hesitation." Jiwoo's tone sharpened. "You think I don't know what he's done? Do you even see what's happening here?" He slammed his hand on the table, the glass shattering and cutting his palm. "Look outside, MC! The citizens, have you seen them lately? They're no longer living people. They're hollow, senseless dolls who only obey his voice. Puppets waiting for their next rally." He clenched his wounded hand and continued. "I'll admit, I once believed Hyun might be a savior, the man who could restore Korea. I fought beside him to defend Daejeon, but something was wrong. The defensive zones expanded, yet no survivors were being found." Jiwoo's voice dropped. "One day, while scouting the mountains, my unit found an abandoned base. Inside were bodies, dozens of them, hanging, torn apart, and half-eaten." He looked directly at MC, and Hyun was there, feeding on them. He leaned forward, desperate. "Please, MC, you have to protect this city before he destroys everything." MC stood up silently. "I'll pretend I didn't hear that," he said, turning toward the door. "If I go against Hyun, I can't guarantee my daughter's safety. I'm not a hero. I'm just a father trying to survive with his child." As he turned the corner, he froze. Damit was standing there. He asked softly, "How long have you been here?" She avoided his eyes. "I just brought you some toiletries, for when you wash." Her voice was calm, but her eyes told another story. MC asked again, "You didn't hear anything, did you?" She shook her head. "No," she whispered, before leaving quietly. Jiwoo watched her go, then asked one final question. "Do you really believe Hyun has nothing to do with you?" The scene shifts back to the present, where MC walks behind Hyun through the construction site. Suddenly, MC's radio buzzes softly in his ear. It's his team. "Escape confirmed," they say. MC's eyes narrow. A flashback plays of the night before, when Jiwoo had warned him. "Didn't you notice something strange at the rally?" Among that entire rally, there wasn't a single young woman. Doesn't that seem suspicious? And do you really think your daughter is safe too? Back in the present, MC tightens his grip on his blade. The noise of the city fades. Only Hyun's voice can be heard, humming softly as he walks ahead. Then, without hesitation, MC moves. In one swift motion, he strikes. A clean, precise slash. Hyun's head falls forward.
With that, the story comes to an end. I hope you liked it. Don't forget to subscribe to Senpai Respawn